No matter how it's said, no matter how they phrase it, when they say space is big or vast or whatever word they use for it, they're always understating it. This is why it's very difficult to get goods from one solar system to the other, from one sector to another, all the way across the galaxy on time, especially once you've ordered it. Now, thanks to things like quantum entanglement, it's very easy to order what you want, to get them delivered, brought to you, whether it be a ship, a simple device, hell, even slaves sometimes. This is something that is very difficult to get from one area to another when crossing those vast differences. There's always something in your way, some uncharted black hole, some strange cloud full of all sorts of material you have to go slower than FTL to get through. Sometimes you could use one of the larger ships and do a fold and jump from one system to another without any problems. But these are very large and will not move unless they're fully loaded, ever. Sometimes this means that your material is sitting there for sometimes months waiting for them to be fully loaded to perform a fold system. Because as the fold system is very, very dangerous in the first place, it also takes up a lot of material to do so, and a lot of very specialized engineers, which is why it's not done very often. The fold lanes are also very, very much controlled to keep from anyone jumping into each other, though in extremely rare instance it does happen. And then there's billions of tons of materials and personnel that just go poof. It's not something anybody wants to do, so they are still highly regulated. This left many planets in the outskirts wondering if they were ever going to get the materials they required. Whether this be mining equipment, farming equipment, any type of material they needed to maintain their habitats, they wondered if they were going to get it in time before space itself found it one of its many, many millions of ways to die that all truly suck out in the void, because most are not fast, most are very painful, and most will definitely make you wish you could die a whole lot sooner and decide to look at your pulse pistol with glee and think, well, this is friendlier. So it was difficult, and sometimes it never arrived on time when you ordered. That was until a new species showed up. A new species that just barely reached out into the stars, and as they begun commerce, within barely a decade of their own time, they began to modify their own ships, build their own, that seemed to go extremely fast, even by our own standards. They seemed to reverse engineer our engines and seemed to be able to work them very, very quickly. Though they created their own jump ships, it was very difficult for them to get any type of treaty to jump into other systems, so they would simply use them to jump them from one planet to another very quickly. And this allowed their commerce and their own engineering abilities to jump well beyond anything anyone ever expected, as you didn't have to wait weeks or months for your materials to arrive, but instead, sometimes less than a day. This was shown to all the other species, and as soon as humans reached beyond their own borders and began to trade, well, things sped up exponentially. Humans began to become couriers that were always known to get whatever you wanted on time. If you needed it within 3 weeks, they would get it to you in 3 weeks. If you needed it faster, you just had to pay a little bit more. And somehow they would be able to cross the vastness of space and get it to you on time. If they couldn't get it to you on time, they always gave it to you at a discount, sometimes at their own financial loss. Many of the species couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing, not until they started integrating themselves inside the human crews. Many of those that decided to join the human crews were only there for one delivery and never wanted to be on a human ship ever again. They feared what the humans would do. They worried if this was what their standard delivery drivers would do, what the hell would their own destroyer and frigate pilots do? As they looked over all the different recordings of this, they realized something. The humans would take unnecessary risks. It was noted that again in the vastness of space you could die very easy, but the humans seemed to chart courses that would almost rip their ship to pieces, but they were moving at such speeds that many a times the gravitational field wasn't gripping them hard enough, and they would simply whip between a dual black hole, if they were far enough apart, of course, or using the gravity field of a planet to slingshot them at such speeds that they went well beyond FTL themselves, sometimes not even going in a straight line. And the scariest one was when we got the videos of what they would do through the asteroid belts. If it was quicker, they would always go through it. Now, for most species, that would mean a very large destroyer, battleship, or dreadnought to start blasting away any of the rocks and making sure that you had a hull strong enough that could deflect any of the rocks. But no, not for humans. On many of the videos, they would simply get into the command couch, strap themselves in, and the helmsman would always have this strange predatory look of glee on their face as they told everybody a strange phrase: buckle up. Everybody knew what this meant, and they all of a sudden grabbed a hold of something. Anybody not holding on to something, well, the gravity motors could not hold them down to the bulkhead. They needed to be in something. Many species that were aboard ended up evacuating their own bowels or vomiting all over the bulkheads. This made the humans look disgusted, but they still enjoyed the ride. You could see as many of the ships went through, ducking, weaving, dodging, and dipping all over the place. The pitch in the yaw was absolutely insane. Many of them thought they could just use AI for this, and then when asking one of the pilots, they said, "What's the fun in that?" Another pilot was asked, "How did you make it through? No one has ever made it through without any type of artificial intelligence guiding them." He simply stated in a strange accent, "Keep your foot to the floor and play footsie with fate." Everybody was concerned about this as it didn't translate well. That was a direct line. They all wondered what was in charge of the human psyche, why they would do this, why they would want to go so fast through an asteroid field, why would they want to whip around a black hole, use a planet or a star as a slingshot. Why would they even consider this when it was simply safer just to go around the long way using the jump points, bouncing along? And they simply stated the strange idea that no matter what, they would deliver the packages on time. They took a strange pride in it. And because of that, even though they would lose the occasional ship to one reason or another, usually one of the pilots pushing the ship well beyond its limits, where it would finally rip itself to pieces, and where other species would simply freak out and lose all control of their bodily movements out of sheer fear, it seemed as though the humans enjoyed every bit of it. We found out later that the humans naturally secreted adrenaline, one of the strongest narcotics in the known universe. It's actually outlawed in many systems, yet the humans produce it naturally. And apparently going, as they put it, faster than fast. They could spike the adrenaline in their system, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. That's when we realized that they are adrenaline junkies, all of them. They used the adrenaline. It didn't matter what for, whether it was delivering something, trying to cook some sort of meal as flames shot up in front of their face, or even trying desperately to mate with other species that was definitely not interested in dealing with a human. It was odd to see. And it was a common phrase throughout the entire universe as they would see the path that the humans took to drop off their cargo and even return, even if it was empty. And even though when dealing with the humans, they seemed all calm, as they simply would state, "Delivery, sign here." We would always look at the pad, and it would always show the flight path that was taken. And even though it was a simple delivery, we would always ask, "You went through there? Are you fucking insane?" And almost every time the human would respond, "Yeah, now sign here, please."